Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina pull off the sweeps. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. All right, Troy does take 2 out of 3 from Texas State, but they fall in the RPI. And Marshall's Michael Green drafted by the Ravens because, of course. But let's first talk about some baseball that happened over the weekend. And boy, Southern Miss fans are not happy with me. I get Charles Huff on, and now they're coming after me because of a comment that I made positively, I thought. But boy, they were not happy. Southern Miss pulls off the sweep. Sunday's ball game was the most difficult. Didn't really have a whole lot of trouble early on. 10-1 on Friday, and then 7-3 on Saturday. They do pull off the 7-6 victory on Sunday. App State had a chance in the 9th, but couldn't quite get it done. This was a pretty good ball game on Sunday. Started out being 5-0 Southern Miss, 1 in the first, 1 in the third, 3 in the fourth, but App State comes right back with 4 in the fourth. Southern Miss, 1 in the fifth. App State, 1 in the sixth. Southern Miss, 1 in the seventh. So App State couldn't quite catch up, and they did have that shot in the 9th inning. Let's see here. Yeah. Well, they got a home run to make it a 1-run game, but that appears to be it. So they had the tying run at the plate. Tough to ask usually for more than that. So this is where Southern Miss fans got upset. And admittedly, I missed their big jump in the RPI. They jumped around 10 after they beat Southeastern earlier in the week. I don't know. I saw the victory. I missed the jump. But nonetheless, they went from about 43 to 33. When I saw it, I thought they were 30. They went from like 42 to 32 or something like that. And I had mentioned that they got off the bubble and at large berth. All right. And because we've been talking about this, not like I didn't start talking about this. Like Troy is a great example. We'll get to them. Don't lose any more ball games. You're going to find yourself in a tough spot if you got to win 2 out of 3 or sweep Southern Miss just to get in at large berth. You know, this is what happens when you're a G5. And I just think it's my thing. And we have actually a couple of examples from last year of what happened. So I'm a big believer that when you're a G5, you got to be in the top 40. That's my belief. By the way, those rankings don't mean anything. All right. The NCAA does not take the top 25 rankings into account. They're nice. It's great that Troy is ranked 15th. I guess their best ranking ever. That's fantastic. Makes everybody in the Troy program feel good. The coaches and the players know the only thing that matters is the ranking. RPI, not the media rankings. All right. And we've talked about this with football, especially with the Sun Belt or other G5s. You get that one Power 4 or whatever it is, Power 5 victory. And then you keep on winning while everyone else is losing because they're playing each other. You move up, but you may not be the 10th best team in the nation. But that's just the way the polls work. So that's a different story. We'll get to that later on. But I was all positive. I was like, hey, they got off the bubble. Southern Miss got off the bubble, and they are now in at-large berth. And everyone's like, well, they weren't on the bubble. I was like, well, hold on a second. That's what I think, top 40. But everything, well, they're projected to do this. I was like, well, I understand that. I understand projections. And we go over that all the time. Warren Nolan does predicted results all the time, although it is fun. Different parts of the day get you different projections. All right. But I was commenting on where they were at the time. I don't know where they're going to finish. I'm just telling you what I think at the time. And when you are ranked between 40 and 50, and you're a G5, you're not guaranteed an at-large berth. That's my opinion. Now, last year, 2 Sun Belt teams were in that spot. Raging Cajuns were in that spot. Remember, they went 2-0 in the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. They flamed out, all right? But they had 41 wins, and they were regular season champs, all right? Right now, Southern Miss is not in the position to be regular season champs. They still may do it, but they are not atop the standings. The Cajuns were, all right? The Cajuns, by the way, we can look at the schedules for the other teams. The Cajuns had an awful schedule last year. They put together a schedule to where they had to do what they were going to do, which was win 40 to 45 ball games to avoid having to win that conference tournament. And that's what they did. They did it and did more than enough to get in. They did lose, went to it right at the College Station Regional, Texas State. They did beat Texas, but lost to A&M. They had a strength of schedule of 60 last year. All right. Non-conference strength of schedule was 65. That was the Cajuns. But they set that up for that way. This year, unfortunately, the Cajuns' schedule is really good, and the Cajuns aren't very good. And they realize they have to win the conference tournament. Again, that's another episode down the road. Also, JMU was 46. They got into the conference, to the NCAAs, right? You know who didn't get in last year? College of Charleston. You know how many wins they had last year? 41. You know what their RPI was? 47. Didn't get in. They had 5 more wins than James Madison. James Madison, 36-25, but a strength of schedule of 42, and non-conference strength of schedule of 6. College of Charleston, 41-14, strength of schedule 117, non-conference 192. That's why James Madison got in, and College of Charleston did not. But I, as a G5, don't want to take those chances. I really don't. That is not my cup of tea. You got to be top 40 in my book to not be on the bubble. Also, on the bubble means you could be in or you could be out. You get into the top 50, you're really sweating it. I just think if you're top 50, you're on the bubble. If you're top 40, I think you're generally in. Now, so Southern Miss had to hang on to win on Sunday, whereas Coastal Carolina, the weather helped them out in a big way. They, among other teams, had a lightning delay. They were trailing Coastal Carolina, or Coastal Carolina was trailing JMU just 1-0. That was just 1-0. It wasn't like it was 10-0 or 5-0. It was 1-0 into the top half of the 8th inning, where they had to stop it because of a lightning delay. And so what happened? They had a lightning delay, come back the next day. You knew that was bad news for JMU. Coastal Carolina hits a home run in the top half of the 9th inning. They tie it up. They go to extras. Coastal Carolina ends up winning the first game on Saturday. They come back and sweep the doubleheader, and then they sweep them on Sunday to win the series. That's a huge win for the Sun Belt and for Coastal Carolina. Let's see if they moved up. Remember, let's see here. No, I'm on the wrong year. Okay. They were 13th heading into the weekend, right? Coastal Carolina stuck at 13th. All right. Wouldn't have been the case if they lost one of those games to JMU. They would have dropped out of the top 20. All right. I don't think they would be in danger of being on the bubble yet, but they would have plummeted a little bit. And we'll show you what that means when it comes to Troy. All right. There were some other games in there. We'll get to that in the next good big time matchups. Arkansas State, I now believe, is a 6th seed. Marshall is in the top 10 with a sweep of South Alabama. So we'll go over all of that. And of course, the pride of Marshall, Michael Green, drafted by the Ravens. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. Troy takes 2 out of 3 from Texas State, but still falls in the RPI. We'll do that after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals and assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Boy, did the Lakers choke it away. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Continuing with Sunbelt action from the weekend. Troy takes 2 out of 3 from Texas State. They also had to overcome a lightning delay on a Friday and had to win it in extra innings as well. They actually, let me see if I got this straight. I thought they were trailing and then took the lead, and then maybe Texas State tied things up. Let's see here. So it's Troy winning 3-2 in 11. Let's see here. Texas State led 1-0. Troy scored 2 in the 7th. I have to go look when the weather delay was, but I thought it was before Texas State scored, or before Troy scored. But Texas State does tie it up in the 9th. Troy wins it in the 11th. Huge victory. Because if you take what happens next as what would have happened next, Troy may have lost the series. All right. They win the game on Saturday, and then the regularly scheduled game on Saturday, and then get beat badly. They got run ruled on Sunday. And so they drop in the RPI. They lost 14-3 on Sunday. So what happens to the RPI? Troy, which was in the top 40, now drops down. I'm telling you, this changes all the time. Maybe because those West Coast games, come in. They dropped to 44. When I looked at it on the way home from work, they were 43. They're now 44. To me, that's squarely on the bubble. That's right now on the bubble. All right. They don't want to lose. They do not have a very tough schedule until they get to the Southern Miss at the end. Troy's got South Alabama, who just got swept by Marshall. And then they do play Alabama in there. That could be big. And then Arkansas State, which is not going to be easy at all, but Arkansas State has an awful RPI. And then they do finish up with Southern Miss. And so, to me, 44, regardless of the record and regardless of the ranking, is squarely on the bubble. They are 31 and 13. Kansas, for example, Kansas State is 43, 26 and 18. McNeese, 27 and 9. They're 42. Even A&M, who I think got swept by Texas this week, 24 and 19, but their strength of schedule is 6. Troy's strength of schedule is 100. And Mississippi State is right behind Troy at 45 with a strength of schedule of 13. You're telling me you want to roll the dice? Troy's at 44, Mississippi State's at 45, and Mississippi State's strength of schedule, and you think a G5 like Troy wants to roll the dice with that one? Good luck. Not me. And even though if they take 2 out of 3, I mean, if they take 2 out of 3 from the rest of the way, including Southern Miss, they'll be in good shape, I believe. Again, all right. But if you lose one game, and it's not fair, but unfortunately, that's the way it goes. South Alabama has an RPI of 145. Arkansas State is 148, although seems to be much improved. So those are barely top 150s. All right. Troy dropped 7-8 spots because they lost to Texas State, who is at 73. Now, here could be the difference. Troy is on the road to South Alabama and Arkansas State. So winning on the road, you do get bonus points. So if you do win on the road. So those games could help them a little bit. So but that's where we are. I think Troy is squarely on the bubble, whereas Southern Miss, probably should have said something, is now sitting at 31. They are not on the bubble. All right. They are no longer on the bubble. All right. Lose a couple of ball games, though, you may find yourself back there. That's what I think. All right. Elsewhere in the Sun Belt, as we mentioned, big series. Marshall ends up sweeping South Alabama, and that puts Marshall in the top 10. They are now 10th. That puts them in the tournament. All right. Arkansas State took 2 out of 3 from Georgia State. That puts Arkansas State as the 5th seed right now. Well, they're tied with App State. So again, we'll worry about tiebreakers later. All right. Still too much baseball to go. So they're tied with App State for 5th as of right now. But that's pretty good. That's pretty good if you're Arkansas State. Again, they could be a thorn in someone's side. They now have a winning record. They've won 4 in a row. They're 22-21. That is pretty good. All right. All right. Also, let's see what happened here. All right. So let's wrap up what happened over the weekend before we get to the NFL. All right. The Cajuns did take 2 out of 3 from Georgia Southern. So they're 4th in the Sun Belt. They did lose Sunday. Tough ball game, 4-3. Georgia Southern does salvage the final game of the series. Old Dominion, after suffering a brutal loss, ULM coming back on Friday night to win 7-6. And they were down 4-0 at one point in time. They won that ball game 7-6. ODU comes back and wins the next 2 ball games. That's some talk about maturity. That's really impressive from ODU. And I guess that's about it, right? We went Marshall sweeps South Alabama. Troy takes 2 out of 3 from Texas State. Cajuns 2 out of 3 from Georgia Southern. Southern Miss sweeps App State. Old Dominion 2 out of 3 over ULM. Coastal Carolina sweeps James Madison. And Arkansas State does take 2 out of 3 from Georgia State. So quickly going over the standings, Coastal Carolina is still first. They have a 2-game lead over Southern Miss. Coastal Carolina 17-4, Southern Miss 15-6. Troy 14-7. They are third. They hold a 2-game lead over the Cajuns, who are 12-9. Arkansas State and App State are tied for 5th at 11-10. Georgia Southern and ODU are tied for 7th at 10-11. Georgia State and Marshall and Texas State are tied after that. And then ULM and South Alabama are 7-14. And James Madison is 14th at 6-15. So again, we do have some tiebreakers in there between Georgia State, Marshall, and Texas State. And God help me if I have to do that. I don't want any part of that. So that's where we are. Quickly going over the schedule for this week. A little bit long in this segment. Let's see. Coastal Carolina is at UNC Greensboro. App State's at Wake Forest. That could help. Texas State hosting UTSA. Southern Miss hosting New Orleans. ULM hosting Northwestern State. Arkansas State's at Little Rock. And Troy hosting Jacksonville State. Wednesday, Georgia State's hosting Mercer. Marshall at West Virginia. West Virginia is like one of the hottest teams in the nation. Them and Northeastern. College of Charleston is hosting Georgia Southern. And Nichols is at South Alabama. And then Marshall's at ODU, Coastal Carolina hosting App State, Georgia State hosting the Cajuns, Georgia Southern hosts James Madison, ULM at Texas State, Arkansas State at Southern Miss, sneaky, and Troy is at South Alabama. You'd think there would not be a case of a letdown there. And again, baseball, it's not meant to be swept, but it's easy, much easier said than done. So that's a good job by Southern Miss. It's a good job by Coastal. Cajuns missed an opportunity to sweep, and obviously Troy missed that same opportunity, although that wasn't a very close ballgame. All right, let's take a timeout. Michael Green, Marshall defensive end, led all of FBS in sacks, gets drafted by, of course, the Baltimore Ravens. We will do that next, right after I tell you about Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, and even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. You get those last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% by buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. The all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, here's Michael Green, the defensive end for Marshall, the only Sunbelt player drafted. Wow, just a lot of good college football players out of the Sunbelt, and that was a little bit odd that he was the only one drafted. Had to wait to the second day, and I don't mind saying I was a little bit surprised about that, and I'll also admit I did not realize why, because my guy, Nick Cattles, at Locked On Patriots, of course, had him listed as potential second-round picks. And I said he'd be a great pick for the Patriots for pass rush. And he said red flags. Looked into it, and obviously he's been accused of some wrongdoing by two different people, enough for him to end up at Marshall. Reports on TV said teams did not buy what he was selling with the reasons of the deal, but okay. But of course, he falls into the Baltimore Ravens' lap. Doesn't it always feel like the Baltimore Ravens, you don't want to even say sneaky good, right? I mean, how do they end up with Kyle Hamilton? These guys are good college football players. You do hope that Michael doesn't run into any other issues off the field, all right? Has figured out that, he's going to get well compensated and pretty quickly over the next couple of months. Still second round pick, so he's got a little leeway to get on the field. You would think he'd be on there immediately, certainly rotated in. All right, that's one of the positions that, not necessarily is on the field every play, and that if you have multiple pass rushers, like the Ravens tend to do, you can have a little bit of depth at that position. All right. So it's big time for Michael Green. Wishing him all the best. Not a Ravens fan. The nephew, the Samo, is a Ravens fan. Although now he may like the Saints because they took the Cardinals' Tyler Shock. Is what it is. But certainly we'll be looking for that we'll be looking for Michael Green to do great things with the Ravens. Was invited, and I'd like to thank someone invited me to a Marshall ball game, and obviously got a ton of feedback. Did not realize how much the feedback was going to be with the Charles Huff interviews. Like, basically had the best week, maybe the third best week of my locked on career. And once the first one hit and we did a second one, we reacted to the first one, and then we, put some others up over the weekend. Then I realized the first two shorts I made were all about Marshall, and this was supposed to be a Southern Miss interview. So we put up some Southern Miss videos about hosting Mississippi State and Jackson State and rebuilding Southern Miss. So those were put up on Saturday and Sunday if you missed them. All right. Nonetheless, it was quite the reaction, and we're continuing to grow. So I appreciate that as much as anything. And the picture that I put up when I got Charles Huff to smile was, thanking him for the 2 weeks going from Southern Miss to Marshall, or the other way around, going from Marshall to Southern Miss. And he goes, "I promise you it was not intentional." So he's laughing at himself because I did thank him for the content, So we shall see, what goes on here with Michael Green, and just continuing to wish him the best. And thank you guys again. We are continuing to grow, and I hope nobody thinks I'm rooting against anybody in the Sun Belt. This is, there's a couple of us who do this and like it. A lot of it because we get access to the coaches, right? I'm not sure too many SEC coaches are going on Locked On. All right. But we get a lot of the coaches. We have Ricky Ronnie supposed to join us on Tuesday, and we're going to try, for the Wednesday episode, and we're going to try and get Butch Jones, and we'll still try to get Bob Chesney. I have not heard back from Bob, and Del McGee, but Del appears like he doesn't want to be on. So you can only ask so many times before you get the hint. But overall, great week. This is going to be the biggest week since I've been here in Louisville, as there's a little horse race called the Kentucky Derby, and bourbon's obviously a big part of the festivities. So it's going to be a great week. Also, as it turns out, Yacht Rock Review is in town. So we may do that on Thursday night. That's going to depend on the weather because it's outside. We have to wait to see what the weather is going to be like on that day. All right. We will, again, we'll see what news comes out on Monday. We'll preview a little baseball, probably talk more RPI and such like that. See once it happens, once it settles down. But I am rooting for the Sun Belt to get in. I guess there is an outside shot of a fourth team getting in. Would be nicer if Troy was a little bit higher in the RPI, and then you'd have Coastal, Troy, Southern Miss, and then the champion. Again, I don't think the champion is going to be anyone but those three teams, but you never know. All right. Anyway, nonetheless, have a great week. All right. We will be enjoying festivities here around town. I have a couple of days off, maybe a little bourbon hunt for the next couple of days. And we're looking forward to having a great time this week. All right. If you are happening to come to Kentucky or Louisville for the Kentucky Derby, be sure to hit me up on social media and we can get together for a beverage. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great week, everybody. And we'll talk to you again on Tuesday.